Speaking of big money and the economy, our final national story this week, the economy is beginning to show signs of recession. So the White House released Trump's new tariff plan again, changing things up. So the tariff regime was expected to go into effect Friday, now been pushed back to the 7th to give Customs and Border Patrol more time to make changes to collect these new duties. This universal tariff for goods coming into the US will remain at 10%, but that will only apply to countries with which the US has a trade surplus. Um, that does apply to most countries, but a 15% rate will serve as the new floor for countries with which the US has a trade deficit. That will apply to about 40 countries, and more than a dozen have tariff rates higher than 15%, either because they agreed to such a framework or because Trump sent them a letter dictating a higher tariff. Now, amidst all that, the day after they announced this new tariff plan, the stock market took a beating. The Dow closing lower by 542 points. The S&P falling 1.6%, and the Nasdaq falling more than 2%. The S&P 500 and the Nasdaq posted their worst days since April and May, and the Dow posted its worst day in over a month and closed its worst week since early April. All of that, those numbers in response to the tariffs, and a terrible jobs report showing the US economy adding only 73,000 jobs last month, and the totals from May and June were revised down by over 250,000 jobs total. So, with those um, monumental downward revisions, the jobs gains from June were the weakest since December of 2020. That's the last time the labor market had job losses. And here's a great quote. Not if you're a person with a job. The pace of job creation seen so far this year is the weakest in decades outside of recessions. So in response, our dear leader Donald Trump does the only thing one can do in the sight of such terrible job numbers. He responds by firing the person who published the jobs numbers, as one does.
Yep.
Derek, um, that's some Banana Republic shit, dog.
No kidding. Like, what happened to "Don't shoot the messenger"? Like, jeez. Um, yeah, I mean, we all knew that we were going to go into a recession with the tariffs. It was eventually going to get to us. Um, it's yeah, jobs. There's a lot of things going on right now with the economy, and Trump doesn't want to hear bad news. He only wants to hear good news. And we have to be happy for our dear leader.
Well, I mean, okay, let's take that to its logical conclusion, though. I mean, Trump puts a loyal sycophant in there to publish the biggest, the most beautiful numbers, the highest numbers go up. That that doesn't reflect the reality on the ground, though. I mean, if people are losing their jobs, if the country is in a recession, we will feel it. Numbers be damned. Am I right, Scott?
Absolutely. And don't forget, we saw this during the pandemic when the governor of Florida fired his medical data person, and in order to boost his tourism numbers, and Florida still kept having COVID cases. And the person he fired ran her own shadow data operation, producing actually accurate numbers. Like, I ran a COVID tracker during the pandemic, so I followed this real close. And you can't, like, trying to hide objective reality never works. But this is the state of America in 2025.
Jennifer, I've some people have said that we are already in a recession and the numbers are just not reflecting it yet. Do you think that is accurate?
It feels like it. I mean, it definitely feels like it. But Americans, like, it takes a while to catch up, right? So, it's summertime. People find a way to do what they want during the summertime. Um, you can get by a little bit. I feel like sometimes a little bit less, but I think it just hasn't really caught up, and it doesn't help when there's just so much back and forth, like and changing the goalpost, like with the tariffs and threatening this tariff, and then extending this deadline and stuff. So I think it's really hard for the average person to really um, kind of put it all together. But I do think we're paying more at the grocery store. But we've been talking about being in a recession for quite a while. Um, and sometimes too, whether or not you're in a recession, that does not matter as much to some people. It does to other people too. It can really also depend on where you're at um, financially and job security. There's a lot of people out there without jobs. I know that for sure, especially certain groups of workers. A lot of social workers out there without jobs. I hear a lot of them talking, the ones that have jobs, I hear them talking about how poor they are treated. Um, for sure. So
There's certainly a lot of that. And well, boy, at the beginning of this year when Trump was inaugurated, they went on this firing spree in the federal government with Elon Musk and Doge. I mean, you can't fire hundreds and thousands of people
Nope.
without expecting to see some downstream effects there. And
I I want to
these
add something.
numbers are usually a couple months behind, right?
Right. They're behind, but I also want to add something as a business person. Not only myself, but I know I just hear this with people that are looking for jobs and other business owners that a lot of us are very much at a standstill. So, because especially depending on where your funding comes in, I'm kind of waiting on some things myself before I make some other business choices. I see a lot of people talking about applying for a multitude of jobs and nobody's getting back with them. So, businesses are interviewing and they're saying that they're hiring, but I think a lot of them are just kind of holding off too. So, that definitely affects the economy as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks are in a holding pattern, really waiting to see how these tariffs are going to affect them. Trump is changing his mind. It seems like every other week with these tariff policies. They're supposed to go into effect, then puts a 90-day extension on, just kicking the can down the road, and it really does feel like with that uncertainty that we're just bound to wind up in a recession. Scott, am I
Mhm.
seeing that right?
You are exactly right. You cannot. So we've all seen the changes in U.S. manufacturing over the last 20 to 30 years. You don't have single products that are made in the US. Everything's got a foreign component, right? So, and we've also seen that a lot of companies, they're simply raising prices proactively. They're just making the assumption a tariff's going to come, it's going to affect them. So you may as well make that money now. Why not? The other thing that's going on with respect to hiring is there's been two major changes in hiring that I've seen over the last decade. The first is that, at least in my field, which is tech, the move has been from you don't hire someone who's good enough. You've moved to hiring a perfect person. Perfect people never exist. Companies no longer want to invest in training. They no longer want to accept somebody who doesn't have the ultimate resume, and they know that there's enough people looking for work that they can just hold out. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is all of the hiring sites, people like Indeed, jobmonster.com, et cetera, they've all instituted proactive AI-based filtering on resumes. So you send a resume out, you have no idea anymore if it gets to a real human, right? Once upon a time, you would have had somebody who might have had some compassion in the loop, who would have looked at a resume from an oddball person and said, "Yeah, I'll talk to that person." Why? Maybe they had a commonality in their history, or they were feeling, sort of, guilty about something that day. But we've effectively outlawed compassion with all this AI filtering, right? So now everything is cut and dry. It's purely by the numbers, and that dramatically affects things, right? Like it is a very different world in the hiring space than it used to be.
Yeah, it's very dispassionate and removed from the actual human element, and not to mention just are places even hiring so much anymore, or are they just giving people gigs? You know, like
Yep.
the employee is a disappearing breed, and the independent contractor seems to be filling in that void. Yeah.
Uh-huh.